My fiancée just blindsided me with a prenup demand at her parents' house. So Allison and I have been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. We're supposed to get married in 4 months. I'm a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company. She works in fashion marketing for a boutique firm downtown. We've been planning our life together meticulously, including buying a house that we were supposed to close on in 2 weeks. Last Sunday, Allison invited me to dinner at her parents' house in their upscale suburban neighborhood. Her mom Marlene had made this elaborate spread: prime rib, roasted vegetables, homemade bread, the works. Her dad Greg was being unusually friendly. Normally Greg treats me politely but distantly, like I'm not quite good enough for his daughter. That night was different. He was asking detailed questions about my work, complimenting my choice of wine, even laughing at my jokes. I remember thinking it was nice that they were finally taking genuine interest in me as a person and potential son-in-law. Halfway through dinner, Allison suddenly put down her fork and got this serious, almost rehearsed look on her face. "Sean, I've been thinking a lot about our future and financial security." She then reached under her chair and pulled out this manila folder, sliding it across the table like we were in a boardroom instead of her family dining room. "I think we should sign a prenuptial agreement before the wedding." I was staring at this folder with my name already typed on a tab, while her parents were nodding along like this was all choreographed. My stomach dropped, but not just because of the surprise. It was the realization that this whole dinner had been a setup. I opened the folder with Allison, her parents, and the smell of prime rib all watching me. The prenup wasn't just about protecting assets we each brought into the marriage. It was demanding complete financial separation going forward. Separate bank accounts, separate credit cards, separate investments, separate everything. Even our emergency fund would be split and maintained separately. But the part that really got me was the real estate clause. The house we were buying together would be titled solely in Allison's name. According to this document, if we divorced, I'd walk away with nothing regardless of how much I'd contributed to mortgage payments, improvements, or maintenance. I asked why she suddenly wanted this when we'd never discussed it before. Her mom immediately jumped in, not giving Allison a chance to answer herself. "It's just smart financial planning, Sean. Surely someone in your field understands the importance of protecting one's assets." The way she said "someone in your field" felt condescending, like she was explaining basic math to a child. Her dad added, "It's nothing personal, just business. You understand business, right?" He gestured around their expensive dining room. "This is how people like us protect what we've built." But here's what was driving me crazy. When we started planning the house purchase, Allison was the one pushing for both our names on everything. She said it would show we were truly committed and building something together as partners. Now suddenly, she wants legal separation of everything we build as a married couple. I closed the folder and looked up at the 3 faces staring at me expectantly. I need time to think about this and review it with a lawyer. The silence that followed was deafening. Allison's fork clattered against her plate. "A lawyer?" Allison's voice pitched higher, her eyes widening like I'd just slapped her. "Sean, I thought you'd be more mature about this. This is about understanding the realities of modern marriage." Marlene set down her wine glass and leaned forward. "Sean, realistic expectations are what make marriages last. I have friends, successful, intelligent women, whose marriages failed because of financial naivety." Her voice carried that particular tone wealthy people use when explaining obvious things to lesser mortals. Take my friend Patricia. She trusted completely, kept everything joint, and when her husband's business failed, she lost half of everything she'd worked for. Greg leaned back in his chair with this smug expression and said, "Sean, you seem like a smart guy. Smart guys understand that emotions and business shouldn't mix." I left feeling completely blindsided and manipulated. The drive home was a blur. I kept replaying the evening, looking for signs I should have caught. We talked about money before, and while Allison likes nice things and expensive restaurants, I never thought she was calculating about it. But sitting at that table, with her parents backing her up like a board of directors, it felt like I was being presented with a hostile takeover disguised as a marriage proposal. The more I think about it, the more questions I have. Why wait until 2 weeks before our house closing? Or is it about waiting until I'm financially tied down with major purchases? Why the complete 180 from wanting everything joint to everything separate? And why did her parents seem so prepared with responses to objections I hadn't even raised yet? I haven't slept well since Sunday. Every time I close my eyes, I see that folder with my name on it and remember the feeling of being ambushed by people I thought cared about me. Am I overreacting? Is this normal? Because right now it feels like my fiancée and her family just tried to manipulate me into signing away my rights to everything we'll build together, while I still contribute equally to building it. Edit. Thanks for all the responses. Reading through these comments is helping me see this more clearly. Someone asked about our financial situation. I make about $120K as a senior software engineer. She makes around $75K in marketing. We've been splitting most expenses proportionally based on income, though I've been covering more of our joint costs because I earn more. The house down payment is coming from both our savings. I'm contributing $35K. She's contributing $15K. Under her prenup, I'd be paying into an asset that would be entirely hers. Update 1. Well, that escalated quickly, and I'm apparently now the villain of this story according to Allison and her entire family. First, I called my lawyer Monday morning. James has handled some contract reviews for me before, and I trust his judgment. His reaction when I described the prenup was immediate. "Sean, this is one of the most one-sided documents I've ever seen. Don't sign this." He spent 20 minutes going through each clause, explaining how I'd be legally vulnerable in ways I hadn't even considered. The house clause was particularly egregious. Not only would I have no ownership stake, but I'd be responsible for half the mortgage payments, property taxes, and maintenance costs on an asset that would be entirely hers if we divorced. Essentially, I'd be paying Allison to live in a house she owns. But here's what really opened my eyes. James pointed out that Allison could have gotten reasonable asset protection without completely screwing me over. A fair prenup might protect premarital assets while still allowing for joint ownership of things we build together. This wasn't about security. It was about creating maximum advantage for her while leaving me exposed to maximum risk. "Sean," he said, "this reads like someone who's already planning for divorce while expecting you to subsidize her life until that happens." That consultation cost me $400, but it was worth every penny for the clarity. So I made 2 decisions that have apparently branded me as a manipulative monster. 1, I'm not signing the prenup as written. 2, I'm withdrawing from the house purchase immediately. I called our realtor Monday afternoon and removed my name from all the paperwork. Since I was contributing $35K of the $50K down payment, and Allison can't qualify for the mortgage on her income alone, this effectively killed the deal. Our realtor was sympathetic but professional. She'd seen this happen before with couples who discovered financial incompatibility late in the process. I also moved $50K from our joint savings account into my personal checking account. Before anyone jumps on me for this was my money that I'd saved over the past 4 years working 60-hour weeks and living frugally. I'd moved it to our joint account 6 months ago when we started seriously planning the house purchase. With everything that's happening, I needed to protect my assets the same way Allison was protecting hers. Allison found out about the account when she tried to check the balance Tuesday morning. She called me at work, and I could hear her screaming from across my cubicle. She accused me of sabotaging our relationship and stealing from us. When I tried to explain that I wasn't comfortable with the prenup terms and that the house purchase didn't make financial sense under those conditions, she hung up on me. That evening, Marlene called my personal cell phone. She was furious but trying to maintain that fake sweet voice she uses when she wants something. She told me I was being petty and vindictive, and that I was punishing Allison for being responsible and mature. She said Allison had already told her friends and coworkers about the house, even posting about it on social media, and now she'd be embarrassed to explain why it fell through. "Sean, sweetheart," she said in this condescending tone, "Allison is just trying to protect herself. Surely you want your future wife to feel secure." When I pointed out that her idea of Allison's security involved my financial insecurity, Marlene's voice got cold. "Well, maybe you're not as committed to this relationship as we thought." Then Greg called an hour later. He tried a completely different approach, the reasonable businessman act. He said he understood my concerns and maybe we could renegotiate some of the prenup terms to make me more comfortable. But then he added that I should still go through with the house purchase to show good faith and prove I was serious about working together. I told him that if Allison wanted financial separation, she'd get complete financial separation. I wasn't going to pay into assets I'd have no claim to or support someone who was legally protecting herself from having to support me. "You're being emotional, Sean," he said. "This is just business. Don't let pride destroy something good." Here's what really pisses me off. None of them seem to understand that they created this situation. Allison ambushed me with a one-sided legal document designed to benefit her at my expense, and now they're angry that I'm protecting myself using the same logic they applied to protecting her. Allison hasn't spoken to me since Tuesday. Her friends have been texting me calling me an asshole and saying I'm ruining everything over money. Her sister Kim left me a voicemail saying I'm destroying Allison's life and that I should think about what really matters. But here's the thing, I feel clearer than I have in months. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Allison showed me she sees our marriage as a business arrangement where she gets the benefits and security while I take the financial risks and obligations. Edit. Someone asked about the joint account. Yes, I took only my contributions plus my share of interest earned. I have records of every deposit going back 4 years. Allison contributed about $12K to that account over 6 months. Her money is still there. She can't claim I took anything that belonged to her because I have documentation of everything. Update 2. This situation has gone completely nuclear, and I'm discovering things about Allison and her family that are making me question our entire 3-year relationship. The house deal officially fell through Wednesday when Allison couldn't secure financing. She lost the $5K earnest money deposit because she couldn't meet the commitment without my income and down payment contribution. According to our realtor, Allison spent 45 minutes on the phone screaming at her, demanding she fix this, and threatening to sue for enabling Sean's sabotage. But instead of stepping back and considering why I made these decisions, Allison's family has doubled down on increasingly desperate attempts to pressure me into reversing course. Thursday morning, Marlene showed up at my workplace. She somehow got past building security and cornered me in the parking garage as I was leaving for lunch. She was crying and telling me how I was destroying her daughter's dreams and how Allison had been looking forward to that house for months. "Sean, please," she said, grabbing my arm. "Allison has already planned where the furniture would go. You're breaking her heart over paperwork." I told her that Allison broke my trust when she tried to legally exclude me from ownership while still expecting me to pay for everything. That's when Marlene offered what she called a compromise. I could go back to the original house deal, contribute my $35K, and Allison would consider modifying the prenup after we were married. When I said that wasn't remotely acceptable, Marlene's whole demeanor changed. The tears stopped, her voice got sharp, and she told me I was being unreasonable and selfish. She said that men who really love their partners don't need legal guarantees because real love means trust. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost insulting. "Allison could have any man she wants," Marlene said, getting nasty. "She chose you. Don't throw that away because you can't handle a successful woman protecting herself." I told her to leave me alone and walked back into my building. Security escorted her out. Friday evening, Greg called and tried yet another approach. This time he was playing the generous father-in-law role. He offered to personally guarantee that I'd be taken care of if Allison and I ever divorced. When I asked what that meant legally, he got vague and said they were good people who would do right by me, and that I should trust the family. I told him I don't make major financial decisions based on verbal promises from people who are clearly biased toward their daughter's interests. "You're being paranoid, Sean," he said. "We're trying to bring you into the family, but you're acting like we're your enemies." Then Greg offered something that made my jaw drop. He would personally loan Allison the money for the down payment so she could buy the house herself. But here's the kicker. He wanted me to co-sign the mortgage because she still can't qualify for the loan amount on her income alone. Let me repeat that. He wanted me to co-sign debt for a house I wouldn't own, secured by money I wouldn't control, to benefit a woman who doesn't want to share assets with me but still wants me legally responsible for her obligations. I laughed. I actually laughed at him over the phone. "Greg, you want me to take financial responsibility without getting financial benefit. That's exactly the same with what the prenup does. The answer is no." "You're making a mistake, Sean," he said before hanging up. "Allison won't wait forever." But the real revelation came Saturday morning. Allison's cousin Jessica called me around 10 a.m. Jessica and I have always gotten along well. She's about my age, works in finance, and we've had good conversations at family gatherings. She said she was concerned about what she was hearing from the family and wanted to get my side of the story. During our conversation, Jessica let slip something that made my blood run cold. She mentioned how Greg and Marlene had been telling everyone in their family that Allison was smart to protect herself because you never know if Sean's tech job will last. And apparently, Allison agreed with her parents. When I asked what she meant, Jessica realized she'd said too much. Her voice changed and she started backtracking. But after some pressing, she admitted that they had been talking for months about how unstable tech careers are and how Allison needed to plan for the worst-case scenario. "She said the tech bubble is going to burst again," Jessica explained reluctantly. "She thinks your job could disappear overnight, and she doesn't want to be stuck supporting you when it happens." I felt sick. Allison had been planning this prenup for months. While I was planning our wedding, researching venues, and thinking about our shared future, she was consulting lawyers about how to legally separate herself from the consequences of my potential failure. "Jessica," I said, "has Allison ever said anything positive about my career or our financial future together?" There was a long pause. "Sean, I think Allison loves you, but she's practical." I thanked Jessica for her honesty and hung up. Then I sat in my apartment for 2 hours, thinking about every conversation Allison and I had ever had about money, careers, and the future. Suddenly, her comments about wanting to be secure and independent took on a different meaning. She wasn't talking about being secure together, she was talking about being secure from me. Edit. Someone asked about my job security. I work for a stable company that's been profitable for over a decade. I have excellent performance reviews, relevant skills, and 6 months of emergency savings. The tech industry surely has its ups and downs, but so does every other industry, and I'm not some startup kid whose job could vanish tomorrow. Allison's fears seem based on media stereotypes rather than my actual situation. Final update. It's over. The engagement is officially off, and despite the pain, I'm honestly relieved. After my last update, several people urged me to have one final honest conversation with Allison before making any permanent decisions. I agreed that I owed it to our 3-year relationship to try one more time, even though I was pretty sure where it would lead. I texted Allison Sunday afternoon asking if we could meet privately to talk through everything without her family involved. She agreed, and we met Monday evening at the coffee shop where we had our first date. Allison looked exhausted. She was dressed perfectly as always, but I could see the stress in her eyes. We ordered our usual drinks and sat in the corner booth we used to think of as our spot. I started by telling her what Jessica had revealed about her months of planning and her concerns about my career stability. I kept my voice calm and non-accusatory. "Allison, I need to ask you directly. Have you been planning this prenup because you expect my career to fail? Allison's response told me everything I needed to know. She didn't deny it. She didn't look surprised that I knew. Instead, she got defensive and said she was just being realistic about the tech industry. Sean, you have to understand, she said, leaning forward with that earnest expression she uses when she wants me to agree with her. I've seen what happens when women don't protect themselves. My friend Jenna's husband was unemployed for 2 years. 2 years, Sean. She had to support him, pay all the bills, cover his health insurance. She almost lost her house. I asked her why she didn't talk to me about these concerns instead of secretly planning legal protection from our marriage. She looked genuinely confused by the question. I didn't want to hurt your feelings or make you insecure about your job, she said, but I needed to look out for myself. That's just being practical. So instead of having a conversation with your future husband about financial planning and career security, you decided to legally protect yourself from having to support me if I go through hard times. Sean, be realistic, she said, getting frustrated. I've worked too hard to build my life to risk losing it because of circumstances beyond my control. Then came the moment that ended it for me. I asked her the question that had been haunting me. Allison, if you think my career is so unstable and you're afraid of having to support me, why do you want to marry me at all? Her answer hit me like a punch to the gut. Because I love you, but love doesn't pay the bills. I need to be practical about my future. That's when I knew we were completely done. Not because she had financial concerns, those are legitimate. Not because she wanted some protection, that's understandable. But because in her mind, there was no our future. There was only her future to worry about. Allison, I said, marriage is supposed to be about building something together, supporting each other through good times and bad. You're asking me to marry someone who's already planning for my failure and protecting herself from having to be there for me during difficult times. She started crying then, saying that wasn't what she meant, that I was twisting her words and being dramatic. She said she did want to build something together, but she also needed to be responsible. We can still work this out, she said through tears. I can modify some of the prenup terms. We can find a different house. You just need to understand where I'm coming from. But I was done. I told her I couldn't marry someone who saw me as a financial risk to be managed rather than a partner to trust. I've spent the last 3 days moving my stuff out of our shared apartment. Allison has been texting me asking to talk through this rationally, but there's nothing left to discuss. The wedding vendors are being contacted. Most have been understanding, especially when I explained that the engagement ended due to irreconcilable differences about financial partnership. Some deposits are lost, but that's a small price to pay for avoiding a marriage that was already doomed. My groomsmen have been incredibly supportive. My best man Tom said, "Dude, you dodged a bullet. A wife who's planning for your failure before you're even married. That's not a partner, that's a parasite." To everyone who shared their stories and advice throughout this process, thank you. You helped me see that I wasn't overreacting and that protecting myself wasn't selfish. Edit. Allison's family has been reaching out trying to get me to reconsider. Marlene left a voicemail saying Allison made a mistake and has learned her lesson, and that young women sometimes get bad advice. Greg texted offering to pay for couples counseling and saying Allison is willing to compromise. They still don't understand that this wasn't about money. It was about trust, communication, and partnership. I had to block them all eventually. My lawyer James has been helping me make sure all joint obligations are properly separated and that I'm protected during this process. Everything is documented, my money is secured, and my name is off all shared commitments. Sometimes the trash really does take itself out. This will really be my last update. Time to move on with my life.
Don't be so dramatic. Your sister has big news, Mom said when I reminded her about my birthday. I celebrated elsewhere instead. Later, my parents called nonstop. Turning 21 was supposed to be a big deal. It's the kind of birthday that actually means something, where you're finally a full-fledged adult, no longer stuck with a fake ID when your friends go to the bar. I wasn't expecting some grand celebration, but I thought maybe, just maybe, my family would at least acknowledge it. Turns out, I was dead wrong. Growing up, I learned early on that I wasn't the favorite. My little sister, Jessica, was the golden child. She could do no wrong. If she wanted something, she got it. If she screwed up, there was always an excuse. Me, I was a footnote in my own family, the one who had to fend for himself while my parents bent over backward to cater to her. It wasn't outright cruelty, nothing dramatic or movie-worthy, but that's what made it worse. The subtle neglect, the little dismissals, the quiet way they made it clear that I didn't matter as much. Jessica's piano recitals were treated like the Super Bowl, while my high school graduation was just an obligation they had to sit through. By the time I hit 18, I was already checked out. I moved out as soon as I could, got my own place, and kept my expectations low. But some part of me, some stupid, naive part, still thought that my 21st birthday might be different. That maybe, for once, they'd see me. I didn't even ask for much, just a simple dinner. That morning, I shot a text into the family group chat. "Hey, what time are we meeting for dinner?" No response. I wasn't too surprised at first. My parents weren't glued to their phones like I was, and Jessica barely responded to anyone unless it was about her. Still, as the hours ticked by, that sinking feeling in my gut grew heavier. By noon, I started coming up with excuses for them. Maybe they were busy. Maybe they thought I meant later in the evening. Or maybe someone would call me and say, "Hey, Matt, happy birthday, dinner at 7. 3 o'clock rolled around, still nothing. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, staring at the empty chat. It was like a slow-motion car crash, except I was the only one watching. At 3:30, I caved and called my mom. She picked up on the second ring, her voice cheerful, casual, like it was any other day. "Hey, honey, what's up?" I hesitated. Are we still having dinner tonight?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "Oh, sweetheart," she said in that tone people use when they're about to let you down. "I should have told you earlier, we're going out with Jessica tonight." I sat up straighter. "Wait, what?" "Jessica has some big news she wants to share, so we're taking her out to celebrate," Mom said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I blinked. "It's my birthday," she laughed, actually laughed, like I was a little kid pouting over not getting the last slice of cake. "Oh, Matt, don't be so dramatic. We'll do something for you next weekend, okay?" In the background, I heard Jessica's voice, cheerful, effortless, oblivious. "Is that Matt? Tell him we'll save him some leftovers." More laughter. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just forgetfulness. It wasn't just bad timing. It was deliberate. I could have argued. I could have fought for my place at the table. But what was the point? They knew exactly what they were doing. They just didn't care. So I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, "Yeah, sure, have fun." Then I hung up. I sat there for a while, staring at my phone like it might change something. Like maybe if I stared long enough, a text would pop up saying, "Just kidding, Matt. Of course we're celebrating you." It didn't. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, not even from disappointment. I was pissed. And then an idea hit me. I called Sarah, my girlfriend. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice even. "Wanna go out for dinner tonight?" She picked up on my tone immediately. "Of course, what happened?" I told her, the whole damn thing. She didn't even hesitate. "Come over, my parents will want to celebrate with you too." That was the thing about Sarah's family. They treated me better in the past 3 years than my own parents ever had. I was just her boyfriend, but her mom always made sure to send me a plate of leftovers when I couldn't make it to family dinners. Her dad asked about my job like he actually cared. They noticed me. When I pulled into their driveway, her mom was already at the door. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she said, pulling me into a hug. "Come in, we're going somewhere nice tonight." I wasn't the kind of guy who got emotional easily, but I swear to God, my chest ached. We ended up at a steakhouse, the kind my parents loved to brag about going to, except this time I was actually wanted there. We ordered drinks, laughed, ate good food. Sarah's dad even ordered a bottle of champagne because, as he put it, the man's finally legal. That deserves a toast. For the first time that day, I actually felt celebrated. And then, as I was finishing my meal, I took a picture of the restaurant entrance and posted it on Instagram. The caption was simple. "Huge thank you to Sarah and her amazing family for making my birthday special." So grateful to have people who actually care about me. I didn't expect a reaction. I figured my parents wouldn't even see it. I figured wrong. Less than an hour later, my phone blew up. First, a text from my mom. "Mom, Matt, what is this post?" Then my dad. "Dad, are you serious right now?" Then the calls started, one after another. I let them ring, and I smirked to myself. They weren't calling because they felt bad. They were calling because I made them look bad. And that was a whole different kind of power. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The first few times I ignored it, letting it ring until it went to voicemail. Then the texts started pouring in, one after another, like a dam had broken. I didn't even need to read them to know what they said. My parents were furious, not because they forgot my birthday, not because they felt bad for leaving me out, but because I had exposed them. They weren't mad about what they did. They were mad that other people knew about it. That was their real issue. At first, I thought they'd just yell at me, maybe throw in some guilt trips, but my parents never took the direct route. They liked damage control. Instead of addressing the problem, they twisted it, made it look like I was the one overreacting. That was their go-to move. Rewrite the story before I had a chance to tell my side. It was always easier to make me look like the unstable, emotional one than to actually take responsibility. I should have expected it. I should have known that they wouldn't let this go. By the next morning, I had texts from my cousin Jake asking what was going on, a missed call from my uncle, and a voicemail from my grandma. "Sweetheart, your mother is heartbroken. She called me in tears last night. She doesn't understand why you're doing this." Of course, she was crying. My mom always cried when she needed sympathy. That was part of the script. Play the victim, make sure everyone sees her pain, and turn the focus away from what she actually did. Then came the kicker. "She said they didn't forget your birthday, Matt. She said they had planned something for next weekend and you just misunderstood." There it was, the rewrite, the new script. Forget the fact that she never texted. Forget the fact that she laughed when I reminded her it was my birthday. Forget the years of favoritism and neglect. None of that mattered, because in her version I wasn't the ignored son. I was the problem child. By noon, I had the full picture. They had called every relative who would listen, spun the story in their favor, and let the manipulation work its way through the family tree. They did what they always did, made themselves the victims before I could even defend myself. I debated responding, explaining my side, but what was the point? They had been planting this narrative for years, setting up the idea that I was too sensitive, too emotional, too dramatic. If I tried to argue now, I'd just be proving them right. Then my dad called. I hesitated before answering, but I knew ignoring him would only escalate things. "Matt, this has gone too far," he said the moment I picked up. No greeting. No happy birthday, not even belated, just straight to business. "You embarrassed your mother, you embarrassed this family." I leaned back in my chair, already exhausted. Did I just say the truth?" His voice lowered, controlled, dangerous. "You have until tonight to take down that post. If you don't, there will be consequences." There it was. The first real threat. I let out a slow breath. I was done playing along. "Like what?" A pause. He hadn't expected me to challenge him. "Matt, I don't want to fight with you," he said, shifting tactics. "I just don't understand why you're doing this. We've always been there for you." I actually laughed. "When?" he sighed. "Son, I'm not going to argue with you." Of course not, because arguing meant facing the truth. Then he dropped the hammer. "You're throwing away your inheritance." I should have seen it coming, but it still caught me off guard. I sat there for a second, letting the words sink in. Then I laughed again, because what else could I do? "And," I said finally. Silence. Then in a tone so sharp it could cut glass, he said, "You really don't care, do you?" "Not even a little." He inhaled sharply. "You're making a mistake." I shook my head. "No, I made the mistake of thinking you actually gave a damn about me." Click, I hung up first. I stared at the phone for a while, waiting for the regret to creep in. But it never did. If anything, I felt lighter. I had spent years trying to be a good son, trying to be worthy of their attention, their love. But now it was so clear. I had been fighting for something that didn't exist, and I was done. That night, I got another text. This time from Jessica. "You really had to make a scene, huh?" I could hear her tone through the message, condescending, annoyed, like I was the one ruining things. I didn't reply. What was there to say? She had never seen a problem because it never affected her. She'd never had to fight for attention, never had to wonder if she was loved less. She got the best of them. I got what was left over. Then an email, my mother, long, rambling. The first few paragraphs were all about how much they loved me, how much family should mean everything. The next part shifted, how disappointed they were, how embarrassed they felt, how I was ruining my own reputation. The final blow, we just hope you can learn to appreciate what we've done for you before it's too late. Classic, a warning disguised as love. I deleted it without responding. By morning, I got confirmation that they had moved on to damage control in full force. A coworker texted me saying my mom had called her. I almost dropped my phone when I read it. Dude, your mom called my mom. She said you were in some kind of mental health crisis and needed space. What the hell? That was a new low. Now they weren't just spinning the narrative to family. They were expanding it, painting me as unstable, making sure no one took me seriously. If I fought back, I'd just be proving them right. I should have been furious. I should have thrown my phone at the wall, but I just felt exhausted. Later that night, Sarah found me sitting on the porch, staring at the darkened sky. She sat next to me, handing me a beer. "They're not going to stop," she said simply. I nodded. "I know." She leaned against me. "So what now?" I exhaled slowly. "Now," I said, tilting my head toward her with a small, tired smile. "I move on." The next morning, I woke up to one last text from my mom. "You've broken my heart. I hope you're happy." No apology, no acknowledgement, just manipulation until the very end. I handed my phone to Sarah. "Do me a favor," she glanced up. "Yeah, block both of them." She didn't even hesitate. A few taps, and just like that, they were gone. I let out a slow breath, realizing how light I felt. Sarah nudged me. "How do you feel?" I smiled. "Like I can finally breathe." That night, I slept peacefully. They could spin whatever story they wanted, but I was done playing their game. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel obligated to explain myself. I didn't feel the need to make them understand, because I finally realized something. They didn't want to understand. They never did. The next morning, Sarah and I went out for breakfast. It felt normal, like any other day, but in the back of my mind, I knew things weren't over yet. My parents weren't the type to let things go. They weren't going to let me just walk away. And I was right. As soon as I turned my phone back on, the first notification popped up, an email from my dad. I hesitated for a second before opening it. "Matthew, we need to talk. This behavior of yours is unacceptable. You're making a spectacle of this family, and frankly, it's embarrassing. We raised you better than this. You need to stop acting like a child and come home so we can talk like adults. If you don't, there will be lasting consequences for the choices you're making. You may not realize it now, but you are burning bridges that you won't be able to rebuild. Family is forever. You'll regret this." There it was, the final warning, the last attempt to pull me back in. Come home, fall in line, obey, or else. I stared at the email for a long time, my mind running through all the ways I could respond. I could argue. I could explain one last time why I was done with this. But what would that change? They didn't listen when I was a kid. They didn't listen when I was a teenager. And they sure as hell weren't going to listen now. I took a deep breath and typed out my reply. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine. If you're embarrassed, that's your problem, not mine. I'm done. Don't contact me again." I hit send, then for good measure I blocked both of their emails. Sarah glanced up from her coffee. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah." A week passed. I expected some kind of follow-up, but it was quiet. Too quiet. Then one night I got a call from my landlord. "Hey, Matt, sorry to bug you so late, but I just wanted to check in on something. Your mom called the office today, said she needed to confirm your lease details for some family emergency." Sounded weird, so I figured I'd go straight to you. I clenched my jaw. Unbelievable. They were trying to track me down. I forced a laugh. "Yeah, that's not a family emergency. That's just them being controlling." "That's what I figured," he sighed. "Listen, I don't know what's going on with you guys, but if you want, I can put a note on your file. Nobody gives them information without your direct approval." I let out a slow breath. "Yeah, that'd be great." "All right, consider it done. Take care, kid." I hung up, my grip tightening around the phone. They weren't just mad. They were desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. I needed to be careful. Sure enough, the next day, Sarah got a text from an unknown number. I know you're the one turning him against us. I don't know what you've been telling him, but you don't get to take our son away. You will regret this." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Wow, they really think I'm some evil mastermind, huh? They think you're the problem because that's easier than admitting they're the problem." I blocked the number. The final straw came a few days later. I was at work when my manager pulled me aside. "Hey, Matt, I just wanted to check in. Your dad called the office this morning, said he was concerned about you and wanted to know if everything was okay." I stared at him. "You're kidding." "Wish I was." He gave me a sympathetic look. "I didn't give him any info, don't worry, just thought you should know." I let out a breath, shaking my head. "I don't even know what to say." "I've seen this kind of thing before," he said. "Parents who can't handle the fact that their kid is an adult. They try to hold on any way they can. Just be careful, all right?" I nodded. "Yeah, I will." My chest was tight with anger. They were trying to sabotage me. If they could convince people that I was unstable, that I was acting out, then maybe they could regain control. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I wasn't scared of them. I went home that night and called a lawyer. Nothing extreme, just enough to find out what my options were. Could they legally harass my job? Could they find ways to mess with my lease? How far could they push before I had real grounds to take action? Turns out I had more power than I thought. I documented everything: texts, emails, call logs. I updated my HR file to make sure they knew not to release any information to anyone claiming to be a family member. I tightened every loose end they could use against me. And then I sent my final message. "You have crossed every line imaginable. You have tried to manipulate, lie, and interfere in my life, and I will not tolerate it. This is the last time I will say this. Do not contact me again. If you do, I will take legal action." For weeks, I waited for the fallout. Maybe they'd send more messages. Maybe they'd show up at my door. Maybe they'd escalate, but nothing happened. They finally got the message. Sarah and I celebrated that night. We went out, got dinner, and toasted to my freedom. "You did it," she said, smiling over her glass of wine. "Yeah," I said, staring down at my drink. "I guess I did." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Are you okay?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "You know what, I am," and I was. Looking back, I think I always knew this was where it was going to end. Maybe not in the exact way it happened, but in some form or another it was inevitable. You don't spend your whole life being the afterthought and then suddenly become the priority. People don't change unless they want to, and my parents never wanted to. The thing about toxic family dynamics is that they trick you into believing you have to play along. That blood means loyalty, that you owe them your silence. But you don't. You never did. Walking away wasn't easy. It hurt. It still does sometimes. But for the first time in my life, I'm free to build something better, free to surround myself with people who actually care. Family isn't about blood, it's about choice. And I finally chose myself.